Let's talk about attachment styles, but we are not going to talk about it in the way that you've heard 500,000 times before, or even more than that. In this episode, I really want to go deep and I want to demystify or debunk some common myths around attachment theory. And I want you to have a full and complete picture and understanding of what they are, what they mean for you, and how they impact your relationships, and of course, how to heal. Understanding your attachment style is one of the most powerful things you can do in your relationships because it gives you a roadmap to your patterns. It explains why you react the way you do, why certain dynamics feel familiar, and why the same themes keep showing up over and over again in your dating life. When you truly understand your attachment style, you stop feeling like your reactions are random or you're crazy. And you start to see the underlying wiring that drives your behavior, which makes it so much easier to master and change. So, today we are going to talk about what attachment styles actually are and why they matter, the defining traits of the four main styles: secure, anxious, avoidant, and fearful avoidant, and practical tools to help you move towards a secure attachment style. Because here's the thing that most people don't really talk about, it's that your attachment style is not your destiny. Attachment style is a spectrum and it's not a life sentence. It's not like, oh, I have an anxious attachment style and this is all that will ever be for me. With the right self awareness and the right tools, you can become more secure. Even if you identify with an insecure attachment style, you can have healthy, deeply fulfilling relationships. So that's just one myth that we need to get rid of, that you are stuck, you're boxed in, because that's simply not true. Okay, let's get into the truth and the history of attachment styles. Attachment styles describe how we approach intimacy, how we bond, how we communicate, how we handle conflict, and how safe or unsafe closeness feels to us. These patterns typically develop in childhood based on how consistently our caregivers were attuned to our emotional needs. So, when our needs were met with warmth, attunement, and reliability, we learned to trust connection. When they weren't, we adapted in whatever way protected us. And those adaptations became our attachment style. These behavioral adaptations are, for example, being a people pleaser because that's what got you the love and care or approval from your parents, or being the perfectionist, being a high achiever, being the peacemaker, whatever it was, we all adapted in whatever ways we needed in order to get love and care and support from our parents. And if you were raised in a household like that, then love probably felt very conditional to you, and this is something that very much carries over into your adult relationships, as I'm sure you've noticed. It's also important to note that attachment style, yes, it can be formed in childhood, but it can really be hammered in and solidified as you enter into the realm of romantic relationships. It's even possible someone may have been completely secure in childhood, but later developed an insecure attachment style after a horrifically toxic relationship. So we can't completely blame our parents, but they are most of the way to blame for our attachment styles. So let's look at the history real quick. Attachment theory began in the 1950s with psychiatrist John Bowlby, who believed that a child's bond with their primary caregivers sets the blueprint for how they connect with others later in life. His colleague, Mary Ainsworth, expanded on his ideas through the now famous strange situation experiment. I'm sure you've seen clips. I mean, I see clips of these on my TikTok all the time, where basically they observed clear, predictable patterns in how infants respond to separation and reunion with their caregivers. So those early observations became the foundation for what we now call attachment styles. And since then, decades of research across psychology, neuroscience, and developmental studies have confirmed what Bowlby and Ainsworth discovered, which was basically that the quality of early caregiving predicts how we regulate our emotions. Childhood attachment patterns show up in adult romantic relationships almost one to one. Insecure attachment is linked to higher reactivity in the nervous system, more conflict cycles, and fear around intimacy. And secure attachment is associated with healthier communication, communication, greater emotional stability, and higher relationship satisfaction. Modern researchers, including Mary Main, Philip Shaver, Cindy Hazan, Sue Johnson, and many others, have mapped out how these early patterns evolve over time, how they show up in dating, conflict communication, and emotional regulation, and how they can be healed through new experiences and self awareness. So, in other words, attachment isn't just a theory from the 50s, it's one of the most heavily researched, consistently validated frameworks we have for understanding love and relationships. And interestingly, I was a psychology major in college. I'm not going to tell you guys how long ago I was in college because it blows my mind. But when I studied attachment theory, it really was only in the context of children and how they related to their caregivers, and very little in terms of how it shows up in adult relationships. I feel like it's only really been within the last 20 years that has really become more of a mainstream idea. And it does explain so much about why we experience the turmoil that we do in our relationships. Understanding your attachment style can help you make sense of your triggers and your behaviors. It can reveal cycles you keep repeating in relationships, and it gives you the awareness to choose differently rather than react from a place of your old wounds. But remember, your attachment styles are not fixed. It can shift and it can evolve throughout your life. Also, different partners can bring out different sides of you. One relationship might activate your anxiety, while another helps to keep you feeling grounded and secure. So instead of seeing attachment as a limitation, see it as information. I think this is really, really important. When I meet with clients, they always will start out by like, well, I'm I have an anxious attachment style. I have avoidant, I'm disorganized, as if that's part of their identity, but it's not. Because, like I said, you can transcend, and you should use this as a tool to gain more self awareness so that you can navigate the realm of love, dating, and relationships with more confidence and with more clarity and with more understanding. Really see it as a lens that helps you understand yourself more deeply and more compassionately. Emphasis on the compassionately. Now, let's discuss the four main types of attachment styles. The first is secure attachment. Secure attachment is the foundation that we all strive for. This is what we want for ourselves, and this is what we want for our partner. It typically develops when caregivers were consistently attuned, responsive, and emotionally available during childhood. Because their early environment felt safe, these people tend to trust connection, they trust themselves, and they trust that their needs matter. People with secure attachment are not perfect. They can absolutely still experience things that we all experience, like anxiety and depression and moments of insecurity. The difference is that they are regulated. When they feel insecure, when they feel anxious, it doesn't hijack their entire nervous system. They know how to regulate themselves. They trust themselves, and they are able to cope with challenges without spiraling and without losing themselves. So here are some key characteristics of a secure attachment style. They are comfortable with vulnerability and emotional intimacy. They communicate clearly and honestly. They regulate their emotions without shutting down or exploding. They balance independence with closeness. They assume goodwill in their partner rather than expecting rejection or betrayal and just bracing themselves for the worst. And they trust that they are lovable and that connection is safe. So if you're in a relationship, if you are fortunate enough to be in a relationship with someone who is secure, and actually I am, which is a godsend because I have a disorganized attachment style. Well, I don't anymore, but I did because I transcended. And we'll learn, that one's coming up, why that is the hardest type, the most difficult. And being with somebody who is securely attached is seriously a godsend. I mean, honestly, I don't think it ever could have worked for me with anyone other than like somebody who's securely attached, because it's such a good model and such a good anchor. So this is what it's like to be in a relationship with somebody who has a secure attachment style. They respect boundaries, both theirs and yours. They bring issues up early, directly, and kindly. They don't play games, they don't create drama, and they don't pull away to feel in control. They repair quickly after conflict, and they are consistent. You always know where you stand with them. Being with a secure person just feels easy. However, there are some potential challenges, and these are worth noting. The first is that people with a secure attachment style might stay in relationships that aren't the right relationships for too long because things are fine, things are good enough, even though it's not really aligned, it's not really what they want. But because they're so comfortable working through issues, they'll kind of stick it out for just way longer than they should. The next is that their calmness can be interpreted as a lack of passion, especially by somebody who is used to anxiety or intensity. This is why sometimes, even though we all want to be with a secure partner, if what you're used to is the chaos, is the ups and downs, is the emotional roller coaster, you might feel like, ah, like this feels kind of boring. And I see this all the time with my clients. They also may unintentionally enable an insecure partner by overfunctioning or taking on the emotional load in a relationship. And they sometimes assume others are as emotionally available as they are and can be blindsided by avoidant or inconsistent behavior. But even if they are blindsided, the thing with having a secure attachment style is you do recover. You recover way quicker than someone from one of the insecure attachment styles. Again, it comes down to this foundation of confidence and trust and being able to regulate. The key takeaway is that secure attachment isn't about never getting triggered. It's about being able to self regulate, communicate, and repair. And that's what healthy love looks like when put into practice. Okay, now let's get into the insecure attachment styles. We're going to start with avoidant. Avoidant attachment often develops when a child's emotional needs were neglected, dismissed, or shamed. They grow up learning that closeness is risky, vulnerability is unsafe, and depending on others only leads to disappointment. So the only person they can depend on is themselves. Avoidantly attached children typically don't receive co regulation. And this is really important. Co regulation is a process where a caregiver helps a child calm down and make sense of their feelings so that they can return to a regulated state. I am a mother of four, as you guys know. I see how hard it is for children to regulate their emotions, especially my daughter. Like once she gets going, she has a very, very tough time like getting herself back. She can't do it on her own. And I see, and this is hard for me because of my avoidant tendencies, but I have to be her anchor when it comes to that. And sometimes my husband is because he's just much better at this. Again, like this is why being with someone secure is amazing. But when a parent doesn't do this, a child's nervous system learns my emotions are too much. No one will help me when I'm overwhelmed, and I have to handle everything on my own. And this is the root of avoidant attachment. It's not a lack of emotion, they have plenty of emotions. It's a lack of support in managing emotion. And so they suppress. Since their caregivers didn't teach them how to regulate, they never learned how to do that in connection with someone else. Instead, they had to self soothe. And unfortunately, they did not learn to self soothe in a healthy way. They did it in an unhealthy way by withdrawal, by independence, hyper independence, and emotional suppression. So let's look a little bit more deeply at what their childhood was like. For most avoidantly attached adults, childhood shared one or more of these themes. One is emotional unavailability or dismissal. Their parents were physically present but emotionally distant. The child learned that expressing emotions wouldn't be met with comfort or attunement. Number two is criticism or high expectations. The parents were perfectionistic, demanding, or quick to judge, and the child adapted by hiding emotions and striving to appear strong or capable all the time. This was me, by the way. By the way, this is like my behavioral adaptation. And if any of you are highly perfectionistic, and chances are this was the environment that you were raised in. I see this a lot with a lot of my very alpha women. Number three, practical but not emotional caregiving. So parents provided for your basic needs, food, shelter, they gave you structure, they provided your education, but softness and warmth and emotional connection were not there. The child's emotional needs were treated as inconvenient or irrelevant. Number four is inconsistent presence. A parent may have been gone frequently, maybe because of work, divorce, illness, or emotionally unpredictable. The child learned don't rely on anyone. They won't be there for you consistently. Number five is early focus or emphasis on independence. Children were encouraged or required to grow up fast, to handle emotions alone, to not make a big deal out of feelings. Vulnerability was minimized or even shamed. And number six is limited emotional modeling. Parents avoided feelings themselves, making emotions feel uncomfortable, unsafe, or shameful. And the child internalized the idea that connection equals danger. As a result, they grew into adults who were self-contained, hyper independent, and uncomfortable with emotional closeness. And it's not because they don't want love, they do. It's because love never felt safe. The core wound for someone with an avoidant attachment style is the fear of being seen as inadequate, disappointing, or not enough. Avoidants pull away because intimacy threatens to expose the parts of themselves that they were trained to hide. So here's how avoidant attachment style shows up in adult romantic relationships: struggling to trust others with their emotions, feeling smothered or trapped by closeness, downplaying or intellectualizing feelings, pulling away after intimacy, shutting down, stonewalling, or needing large amounts of space, feeling irritated by partners' emotional needs, craving connection but not knowing how to tolerate it. Deep down, they want closeness, but their nervous system interprets it as danger. And this is the ever so frustrating push pull dynamic that happens with an avoidant partner. They want it, they care about you, they're there, but they just can't handle it. And if you're dating someone avoidant or you have dated, typically this is what you'll experience. They pull away right after a moment of closeness. They struggle to apologize or take accountability. And this is because it just feels too exposing. They avoid conflict or disappear when they're overwhelmed. They send mixed signals like connection followed by withdrawal. And they appear very calm, almost to the point where you're like, do you have emotions? Are you a narcissist? Are you a sociopath? But inside, they're managing massive emotional discomfort. It can feel like they're rejecting you, but often what they're doing is trying to protect themselves. Now, I want to make a very important distinction because I see people making this mistake all the time. There is a difference between someone with an avoidant attachment style and someone who is just not that into you. So let's look at what that difference is. This is important because so many women are labeling basic disinterest as avoidant attachment when they are not the same thing. An avoidant partner usually does show genuine interest. He is interested, or she. But look, just to make things easier, I'm going to use he here, okay? They connect, especially in the beginning. In the beginning, they connect, they open up in small ways, they invest, and then the intimacy. So when things get more intimate, when the connection gets deeper, that's what triggers the withdrawal. So when things feel calm and safe, they're open, they're warm, they're present, they're engaged. They disappear or shut down when they get overwhelmed. But eventually they do circle back, sometimes with remorse and sometimes in an attempt to try to repair. Again, they want connection. They're just terrified of losing their independence or of being judged if somebody gets too close. So that's avoidance. Now, someone who is not that interested on the other hand, behaves very differently. The effort is often minimal from the beginning. There is some effort. They're somewhat interested. It's like a classic case of a guy likes you but doesn't like you enough. And I think I did do another episode on that. There's inconsistency with no follow up, with no repair, with no accountability. You're always the one initiating, and there's not really any movement on his end towards emotional depth or a deeper level of intimacy and connection. There's no progression, there's no desire to build something real. You feel like an option because you are an option. And the lack of effort is not an attachment style issue. It's just disinterest. He's just not that into you. In the book, if any of you have read the book, and if not, I highly recommend Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. So John Gray talks about this a lot. And if you're dating, like not married, I would recommend, and not in a serious relationship, I would recommend Mars and Venus on a date. But one of the main tenets of that book was that men pull back men pull back sometimes. Like pretty much all men need to pull back during periods when they're stressed or they're overwhelmed. Now, I would just amend this to say that it's really masculine energy, not men. Like, for example, I need to pull back. Like when I'm feeling stressed and overwhelmed, I don't want to talk about it. I'm not somebody who's going to like call my girlfriends and talk about my problems and like everything that's wrong. That's just not me. So I would say it's more just masculine energy, but we could say men. So he posits that men naturally withdraw sometimes, not because they're avoidant, but because that is how masculine energy recalibrates. It's biological, it's hormonal, it's a part of masculine self regulation. So men often retreat briefly to process emotions, regain a sense of autonomy, reduce pressure, or reconnect with themselves. This kind of withdrawal, according to the book, and I agree with what he said, is healthy and temporary. The difference is in what happens next. A secure man who pulls back returns with clarity, consistency, and connection. And John Gray talks about this, like the rubber band effect. He like pulls back and then he comes back and like everything is stronger and better than it was before. He doesn't punish you with silence and he doesn't disappear or shut you out emotionally. He simply takes space and then he comes back and he's even more grounded and is even a better man because of it. An avoidant pulls away to avoid emotional intimacy. The distance isn't about stress relief. It's a protective strategy. It's a survival instinct. And often he stays distant. This nuance matters because so many women are diagnosing avoidant attachment when what they're really seeing is normal masculine polarity, temporary overwhelm, stress, overthinking, or just a basic need for space. Space taking is not the same as emotional unavailability. Okay. I'm glad I cleared that up because it's just getting annoying that every time I post like a TikTok or something about why men pull away, everyone in the comments is like, oh, it's because he's avoidant. It's because he's avoidant. It's like, no, not because he's avoidant. Like it's just not. I think that we're just too many concepts are just flying around and there's just too much noise around these subjects. And that's why people are getting it wrong. And I think it's to their own detriment sometimes. So if you're in a relationship with an avoidant, it can work. Like you can have a successful relationship with an avoidant, but it takes work on both sides. Firstly, he needs to take responsibility and ownership for what he's going through. And it would be wise to work with a therapist, a coach, somebody who can help him navigate and process and learn to feel safety within himself. Now, on your end, what you could do is first respect his need for space. The more you badger him, the more you push for closeness when he needs to retreat, the worse things are going to get. Next is use gentle, non pressuring communication. Next is avoid emotional flooding or intense confrontations. And focus on creating a safe space within your relationship. If you make it safe for him to open up to you and you can hear him and not get reactive. And when I say get reactive, I mean not pounce on him because he says something that feels threatening to you. Like he says something, you're like, what? Do you not love me enough? Do you not care about me? Do you not think that you're going to end up with me? You have to make it safe for him to express his emotions. And if you do, he'll express his emotions more. Avoidance do not heal through pressure. They do not heal through ultimatums. They heal through consistent, predictable emotional safety. But like I said, you should not be doing all the heavy lifting here. Absolutely not. He also needs to be doing a lot of work on his end. And if he refuses to do that, then it will be very, very difficult, if not impossible, to have a successful, healthy, functioning relationship. And here are a few quick tools to heal if you have an avoidant attachment style. The first and most important is you have to reconnect with emotion. You can use journaling, art, therapy, mindfulness. You have to connect with your feelings. You've been suppressing your feelings up until this point. You have to feel them. I'm sorry. I know it's uncomfortable. I know you don't want to, but it has to be done. Number two, practice micro vulnerability. Share small truths with safe people. Tiny disclosures like this will rewire your belief that vulnerability equals danger. Number three is challenge the I don't need anyone reflex. Let people help you in small ways. It actually does feel very nice coming from someone with avoidant tendencies. Accept support, ask for feedback, let connection coexist with your independence. And number four, build tolerance for intimacy. Increase closeness gradually, like strengthening a muscle. You don't need to force depth, just stay present a little longer, even when your impulse is telling you to run. All right, that's a wrap on avoidant. I feel like I could like end the podcast here and this will have been a full episode, but we have more. We still have three more attachment styles to go. All right, let's talk about anxious attachment. Anxious attachment often develops in childhood when love feels inconsistent. Sometimes a caregiver was warm and attuned. Other times they were distracted, overwhelmed, or emotionally unpredictable. And that inconsistency wires a child to stay on high alert, scanning constantly for signs of connection or disconnection. The message the child internalizes is love can disappear at any moment, so I have to work hard to keep it. And this becomes the blueprint for anxious attachment. Most anxiously attached adults grew up with caregivers who were sometimes emotionally available and sometimes not. And this unpredictability made the child hyper aware of emotional shifts and desperate to secure the parent's attention and affection. Often, the parent relied on the child emotionally, blurring boundaries and making love feel conditional. The child may have taken on the role of stabilizing the parent's mood, caretaking their emotions, or trying to be good to keep the parent close and to keep the peace in the house. A lot of the time, the way I describe it is like the child is like the emotional thermostat for the household. They feel like they need to be quiet, suppress their needs, be the people pleaser, make mom feel better when dad storms out of the house in order for everything to be okay. So they really take on a big burden for themselves. Some caregivers were reactive or volatile, which leaves the child unsure which version of the parent is going to show up on any day, like a Jekyll and Hyde. Other times, parents offered affection only when the child behaved a certain way, performed, or met expectations, which again goes back to that blueprint for love is conditional. It's something I have to work for. It's something I can control. I can behave a certain way and then I'm going to be loved. At times, a parent would comfort the child, but then the next time they might dismiss their feelings entirely. And that inconsistency teaches the child to cling, to overthink, to be hypervigilant, and constantly monitor for signs of danger or disconnection. So, this results in an adult who becomes hyper attuned to their partner's moods, takes everything personally, fears abandonment intensely, and overworks and overfunctions to maintain closeness. It's not because they're needy, but it's because their nervous system was trained to equate inconsistency with threat. The core wound of someone with an anxious attachment style is the fear of not being enough or the fear of being unworthy of love. And everything spirals from this. So, some key characteristics of anxious attachment are overanalyzing texts, calls, tone, timing, everything, a constant need for reassurance, difficulty trusting stability, sensitivity to perceived rejection or distance, prioritizing the relationship over themselves, idealizing love, then feeling crushed when their needs aren't met. Their system is wired to believe if I don't hold on tight, I'll lose everything. So, in a relationship, an anxiously attached person may cling not only to partners, but also to the idea of someone. They struggle with boundaries because boundaries feel like a threat to connection. They often give way more than they receive, and then they feel resentful, hurt, or unseen. They require tons of reassurance, not because they don't trust you, but because they don't trust that closeness is stable. Their fear of abandonment makes them overinvest early, misread ambiguity as rejection, and spiral quickly when things feel off. Deep down, it's not that they're dramatic or crazy, they are scared. One thing I see getting mixed up a lot is insecurity and anxious attachment, because a lot of the time, what insecurity just gets written off as anxious attachment, or people who are insecure think that they have an anxious attachment style when that's not the case. Being insecure or needy is not the same as having an anxious attachment style. Insecurity is usually situational. It shows up during stressful periods. It may show up after a breakup or when you're dating somebody who is very inconsistent. You're like, yeah, anybody's going to feel a little bit insecure and anxious when you're dating somebody who's inconsistent. Once the situation stabilizes, though, or once they feel reassured, the insecurity typically calms down. Anxious attachment, on the other hand, is a deep patterned response wired in childhood when love felt inconsistent or unpredictable. And it shows up across relationships, even with stable partners, because the nervous system has been trained to fear loss and interpret distance as danger. Insecurity tends to respond to logic and reassurance, while anxious attachment responds to safety and regulation. Being needy is a behavior and it's also a mindset, but anxious attachment is a physiological reaction rooted in a fear of abandonment. One is about confidence and the other is about survival. An insecure person can feel secure with the right partner. An anxiously attached person needs both internal healing and relational consistency to shift towards a secure attachment style. So I hope that clears things up. Now, here are a few quick tips to help you heal if you have an anxious attachment style. One, recognize your triggers. Ask yourself, what story am I telling myself right now? Number two, the power of the pause. And I talk about this extensively in my book, Detached. This is just important for everyone, but especially those who are prone to being anxious. Don't react immediately. Take a breath, take a walk, dance it out, cry it out, shake it out, anything that will ground you and interrupt that panic loop. Number three, rebuild inner safety. Spend time with consistent and emotionally safe people so your nervous system learns stability through experience. And finally, learn to receive instead of chase. Let people show you who they are. Let love come towards you rather than chasing after it. One question you may have now, and I feel like I could do a whole other episode on this, is why do anxious and avoidance always end up together? Like, based on everything we've learned, wouldn't it make more sense for avoidance to just date other avoidance? Or wouldn't it make more sense for like maybe anxious to date other anxious or anxious to only date secure? But that's not typically what we see. The anxious and the avoidance are always pulled together like magnets. Why does that happen? So the reason it happens is that the dynamic, even though it's not healthy, feels familiar. The anxious partner is used to inconsistent love. And so the avoidance emotional distance feels like something that they recognize. It feels familiar since childhood. It's something that they feel compelled to fix. Meanwhile, the avoidant partner is often familiar with being pursued or emotionally needed, and so it can be validating at first because, like I said, they do want connection, but eventually it becomes overwhelming. So, together, these two trigger each other's core wounds. The anxious partner chases connection to ease their fear of abandonment, and the avoidant partner pulls away to protect themselves from being engulfed. The more one pursues, the more the other withdraws. This push pull cycle reinforces both of their beliefs about relationships. The anxious partner feels that they have to work hard in order to be loved, and the avoidant partner feels closeness is too much and they need to retreat. It creates the emotional highs and lows that can feel like passion, but in reality, it keeps both people stuck. On some level, each one hopes the relationship will heal their wounds from the past, but unless the partners are actively working to heal their attachment partners, the dynamic stays chaotic, intense, and ultimately unfulfilling. Also, the anxious partner fulfills the avoidant one's need for closeness because they're being pursued without them having to do much. Like, so they can feel desired without them really having to do anything. But then, of course, it crosses a threshold and it's overwhelming. Also, the reason they end up together is because a secure person most likely won't put up with the avoidant person's behavior, their avoidant behavior. It's really just like they're the only two that can tolerate each other because they press on each other's wounds. Like if you have two avoidants together, they just won't get anywhere because they'll just be too scared to move things forward. So that's why those two always end up together. Okay, let's get to the fourth type, which is fearful avoidant, also known as disorganized attachment style. This style is the most complex of all the attachment styles. It often develops in childhoods marked by trauma, chaos, or unpredictability. In these scenarios, the caregiver was both a source of comfort and a source of fear. The person the child was wired to turn to for safety was simultaneously the one who caused the most emotional or physical harm, or just couldn't be relied upon to protect them. This creates an almost impossible internal dilemma, which is I need you, but I don't feel safe with you. And this is why people with disorganized attachment, the reason it's called that is because it feels disorganized, it feels chaotic. It's marked by a feeling of like, come close, now go away. I don't feel safe on my own and I don't feel safe with you. Because of the contradiction, the child's nervous system never forms a consistent strategy for seeking connection. So instead, they oscillate between anxious behavior, seeking closeness, and avoidant behavior, pulling away for safety. As adults, fearful avoidants crave love deeply, but they are terrified of vulnerability, rejection, and the possibility of losing control. The childhood of fearful avoidance was typically pretty traumatic. It was a lot of emotional chaos, a lot of confusion, and at times it could be dangerous. Their caregivers may have been loving at times, at certain moments, but they were also reactive, unpredictable, frightening, or completely absent. Some grew up with parents who struggled with addiction, untreated mental health issues, violence, instability, chronic emotional or physical neglect. Others were raised in homes where their physical needs were all met, but where boundaries didn't exist, where roles were reversed, or where expressing your feelings was not safe. In these environments, the child learns two things at once. Number one, connection is essential. And number two, connection is dangerous. Without consistent emotional co regulation, a child never develops emotional tools. Their nervous system becomes conditioned to expect chaos, leading to intense emotional highs and lows and difficulty trusting themselves or trusting others. So, key characteristics of fearful avoidant attachment is a deep fear of abandonment and a fear of intimacy, difficulty regulating emotions. They get overwhelmed very quickly, alternating between pulling someone close and pushing them away, difficulty trusting others and difficulty trusting themselves, a tendency to sabotage closeness because it feels threatening, and intense relationships marked by highs and lows. Their internal experience is often, I want love more than anything, but I don't know how to feel safe in it. If you're in a relationship with somebody who has a disorganized attachment, it can feel like riding an emotional roller coaster. There may be moments of deep connection and vulnerability, followed by sudden withdrawal and shutdown or distancing, often without any explanation. They might react very strongly to a perceived rejection, pull away when things get intimate, chase closeness, then panic when they get it. So they may become very obsessed with somebody, emotionally unavailable. And then if the person wants them, they completely panic. They may have trouble expressing emotions clearly, struggle to believe that they're lovable, and have difficulty calming their nervous system without external chaos. Their relationships often feel very passionate but unstable. They're very intense, very confusing. The core wound underneath it all is a profound fear of being hurt. And this is layered with shame and a belief that they are too much or that they are not enough. Their core wound is love will abandon me or destroy me, and it will be my fault. And this wound keeps them locked in a cycle of wanting love and running from it simultaneously. And while I'm describing all of this to you, gosh, my entire history is like flashing before my eyes because this was me. This was me. And it was so intensely difficult to break out of this, but I did. And I will tell you that as of today, that I'd say pretty much since I've been married, I would say my attachment style is secure slash avoidant. So we've gotten rid of the anxious attachment. I do not think I'm disorganized anymore. I do still have those avoidant tendencies that I have to work through, but I was able to get out of this. And this is the trickiest attachment style. So there is hope for you if you feel like there might not be. Here are some tools to heal a fearful, avoidant, or disorganized attachment style. And if you guys want me to do an episode on how I healed and overcame my disorganized attachment style, I can definitely do another one specifically focused on that. So let me know. You can always leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube or on Spotify. Okay, so here are some tools for healing a disorganized attachment style. The first is any type of trauma informed therapy. I've done plenty of this. Modalities like EMDR, somatic therapy, inner child work can help resolve some of this early chaos and resolve and restore a sense of safety. Number two, emotional regulation practice, mindfulness, grounding, breath work, and body-based practices help anchor overwhelming emotions. It's very important to get back in your body. A lot of us with disorganized attachment styles also tend to dissociate and just become completely disconnected from ourselves. Number three, slow, safe relational experiences. Secure, consistent people teach your nervous system that connection doesn't equal danger. Number four, name patterns in real time. Pause when you feel yourself shutting down or pushing away because awareness interrupts this cycle. And this is important no matter what your attachment style. And number five, practice small vulnerability. Share tiny pieces of truth with people who have earned your trust. Don't do big emotional dumps. This will just give you a big vulnerability hangover and might rouse some of your shame and some of those feelings of being too much. Small, manageable steps that expand your window of tolerance. Okay. And just some quick universal tools for everyone to implement to move to a more secure attachment style. The first is just self awareness, just understanding yourself, understanding your attachment style, understanding how you operate, understanding your wounds and exactly where they came from. Number two is, and I talk about this one all the time with my clients, get comfortable being uncomfortable. For me personally, like if me and my husband have a disagreement or an argument, like I just want to shut down and like not talk about it. And it drives him crazy. He hates it, obviously, because he's secure and he just wants to repair. But he respects it. He respects the boundary. But I know that like, yeah, he's going to respect my boundary for space, but I know this is not the healthy way to deal with this. I have to take some deep breaths and go and talk about it, even though I don't want to. It's uncomfortable for me to have these emotional conversations sometimes. So that's what it looks like. For someone with an anxious attachment, yeah, it's uncomfortable holding yourself back from sending that text, like sending the 10th text or whatever it is. It's uncomfortable to sit in the confusion of not knowing where you stand with someone. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. And most importantly, you have to learn how to self-soothe because really with these insecure attachment styles, what we're doing is we're seeking safety from something outside of ourselves, from something external. And you're never going to really feel safe when you're relying on the outside to give you that sense of safety. So you have to learn to give it to yourself. Now, everything I discussed, I mean, we really went deep into the styles, but in terms of healing, in terms of moving to a secure attachment style, in terms of not letting attachment run your life, the first place to start, obviously, is with my new book, Detached: How to Let Go, Heal, and Become Irresistible. The response has just been phenomenal, and I'm so humbled by all of it. I just can't believe the impact it's having on people. I felt this like wave of, I don't even know how to describe it. It was not a feeling I'd ever felt before, but it was like a mix of sadness and excitement and joy when I finished writing the book, because I was like, I've done it. Like, I wrote the exact book that I needed, like that I desperately needed when I was struggling in my love life, in my life in general, when I was floundering. This is what I needed. And there was this sadness in that, like, God, I wish I knew all this earlier. What would my life have looked like? But I really am a believer that, like, I am meant to learn every lesson the hard way. And I've been given this skill of expression and writing and storytelling. And so I have to learn it the hard way so that maybe you don't have to, or you can learn it the less hard way. Anyway, my book is definitely the place to start. And if you read it, please make sure to leave a review. It helps so much. I'm a slave to these freaking reviews. It just boosts the algorithm takes those reviews. The more reviews you get, it will show the book to more people. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. This episode could have been 5 different episodes. Like, what am I even doing here? I could have banged out 5 episodes in one, but I wanted this to be like the final episode on attachment style. I really hope I made it as crystal clear as possible. I hope that I helped debunk some of the common myths and confusions with attachment style. And I hope that you've learned some tools to help you and help you heal from whatever your attachment style is. If this was helpful, please make sure to leave a review. It is so helpful. There's so much that goes into these podcasts. My podcast is not monetized. I do this because I love it. I mean, I make short form content, but like, obviously I could not get all of this into like a 3-minute clip on TikTok or on Instagram. So this is really a passion project, but I mean, look, I'd love to monetize it at some point, but that's not why I'm doing it right now. I'm doing this to really create meaningful content, and all I would love from you back is a review, a rating. It just it's such an easy way for you to help me. And for me, that enables me to continue helping you by producing content that is helpful. Make sure to also share this with a friend. I'm sure you have one that needs to hear it. Thanks for being here. And please share your feedback. Like, was this too long? Was it in too much depth? Not enough depth? Do we need more episodes on attachment style? Share all the feedback. I love hearing from you. You can leave comments. You can email me or DM me. I'm at Sabrina Bendori on Instagram, and I will see you next time.